Welcome to the Mildura Weekly, and joining me today is the Minister for the Prevention of Family Violence, Gabrielle Williams. Welcome to the studio, Gabrielle.
Thank you for having me.
Well, today you toured the Orange Door and also Mallee Domestic Violence Services. Tell us about the Orange Door, and it's very much a world first program.
Absolutely. So the Orange Door comes out of the recommendations from the Family Violence Royal Commission. It's very much a centrepiece of our broader family violence reform, and there's so far been 5 rolled out, and Mildura was one of the first to come online, and it's one of 17 that will eventually be rolled out by 2022. And these are really, really important, not just for the primary sites of the hubs themselves, but because of the work that underpins them to better connect a service system that sits around them in local communities. So we know that they're very, very well utilised. The Orange Door here in Mildura has some almost 7,000 people come through referrals, about 3,000 contacts with children as well. So that's it gives you a sense of just the scale of demand. And what they represent is a new way of working. They represent a more connected, joined up way of delivering services, because one of the really key things that the Royal Commission told us was that our family violence service system was disconnected, fragmented, and ultimately what that was leading to was women falling between the cracks and not getting the services that they needed when they needed them. And so this is not just about a primary site, about a building that co-locates a number of key partners in the family violence space, but it's also about the fact that it connects up the service system that sits around it and makes sure that we're effectively building a kind of safety net that will ensure that women and children don't slip between those cracks anymore, and that they are getting the help that they need when they need it.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Mildura sits fairly high on the crime stats in Victoria, and particularly with domestic violence, and that's why these services are so incredibly important. We also visited Mallee Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Services with you today, and of course we met some of the staff in training, and of course that's going to be incredibly important because the demand for their services is so high. Yeah,
that's right. So you've touched on a couple of important points there. One is the prevalence of family violence across our entire community, but we do know that the prevalence data here in the Mallee region does demonstrate that it is particularly high here, but this is, and we shouldn't kid ourselves, this is an issue that affects every corner, every part of our community. So yes, the demand for services is really important, as is the work in prevention that we know is also vital to achieving change in the long run. And of course workforce is essential to making sure that the promise that we've made in delivering this reform can be achieved. Without those frontline workers, without the expertise that they hold, we can't get this work done and we can't get the outcomes that we need to achieve. So what we were doing today at the Mallee Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Service was meeting with a few, I think it was 3 currently, student placements that are currently sitting within that organisation, who have been funded and supported to be doing those placements by the Victorian Government as a way of upskilling the next generation of workers, but also of also upskilling the existing workforce too, because a part of that funding that goes into supporting those placements is also in providing support for the organisations to supervise those placements. So what we're really doing is giving those experts on the ground the opportunity to share their knowledge, share their expertise, which in and of itself can have a positive impact on the existing workforce too, remind them or refresh their own skills because they're having to teach somebody else. This is incredibly important work. It's absolutely at the heart of us being able to achieve our objectives in the long run.
And of course the government's also working to attack the core problem, and we talked about that earlier as well. Would you like to just touch on the actual issue of domestic violence itself?
Yeah, sure. So the Royal Commission made a few observations, and one of them was that one of the key drivers to violence against women and family violence was gender inequality. Effectively, the point being made was that bad attitudes towards women lead to bad outcomes for women, and at its most extreme end, that can be violence towards women. And so we know that there is an attitudinal shift that needs to happen across our community. It's cultural change. It's about changing the discussion that we have on this issue. It's about changing the way we speak about women, the way we treat women, about the representation of women in all aspects of our life, and trying to really lift that so that we are creating a more equal community where women are respected, and we know that that will translate into better outcomes for women across the board, whether that be their financial security on one end to women not being disproportionately represented as victims of violence.
And just finally, I think you're aware there's a new $10 million multidisciplinary centre planned for Mildura, which is going to be a game changer in many ways. While the services work well together now, this is going to be a really first-class facility when it's built.
Yeah, absolutely. I was able to go and visit the site of where the new MDC facility will be, and I know there's much excitement about being able to have a space that's fit for purpose, that really is designed with the service delivery in mind that we know already takes place there, but could be further enhanced by a more fit for purpose space. So I know it's something that the Sexual Assault and Domestic Violence Service is really looking forward to, as of course are all the teams that form part of the MDC.
Well, thank you so much for coming in today. We appreciate it very much.
Yeah, thank you.
And we'll look forward to meeting you again sometime.
Thanks very much.
And be sure to get all your local news at milduraweekly.com.au.